I received a free complimentary 9.9 prescreen with this submission. Hey there, today I have a CGC unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up a CGC submission, a 9.8 prescreen to be exact, and kind of joking around in the opener there. I figured that with everybody talking about the 9.9 prescreen, it got me thinking that isn't every prescreen a 9.9 prescreen? The way it works is that you're setting up a minimum grade where you're asking CGC to only grade the book if it is graded at a specific grade or above. And while I still really don't quite understand the purpose of the 9.9 prescreen other than pure distraction from some of the inconveniences that CGC is going through right now, but if I'm creating a submission like this where I'm submitting my books for a 9.8 prescreen, it is likely that they could get a 9.9 or even a 10.0, which would be amazing, right? I think to me what's going to end up happening is if anybody, and I don't know why anybody really would, but if anybody were to submit books at a 9.9 prescreen, I'm almost betting that they would bring in a specific grader just for those books, and probably the books being submitted under the 9.9 prescreen, it could even be trade paperbacks, square bounds, foils, heavy cardstock on a comic book cover and so forth. It's probably for a specific kind of book, but I'm never going to submit the books that I submitted in this 9.8 prescreen specifically for a 9.9. I just imagine I would get a whole box of rejects sent back to me, and then what's the point? Now, this submission contains a lot of books I picked up recently where I had prescreened them myself as a 9.8, put them in a certain area of my collection, and grabbed those first to submit to CGC for a 9.8 prescreen. And this is another example of me making more timely and quicker decisions about what to do with my books instead of just putting them in my personal collection and thinking I'll get them graded later, a year or two from now. I'll remember to go back and finger that bin and pull out that book and say, that's the one I remember I wanted to submit to CGC. I'm going ahead and trying to get these graded and slabbed sooner than later, as a lot of times these books will kind of get lost in my collection. And I don't want them to sit around and move back and forth or be moved from one bin to another as I'm reorganizing my collection. I'd rather have them encased and slabbed. This particular submission, I would say the size of the box is about the same as my last two 9.8 prescreens, which were not perfect. It did contain rejects, but I'm anxious to open this up. I did not look at the grades beforehand. I've stopped doing that. I won't do it anymore. It's far more exciting. The anticipation builds up. It's part of the fun. It's part of why I do this. It's the thrill of trying to figure out, which books got a 9.8, which ones didn't. But I can just tell that either the slabs are really pressed in there together, or there's probably a book or two that didn't make it through. So I'm very interested to see which books got a 9.8, which ones didn't. It's time to open this up and find out. All right, the box is opened up. I have my post-it notes here to cover the grade so that we can find out together what grade the book received. That's always very exciting. And so I'll have my post-it notes here handy and ready to go. All right, so in no particular order, let's take a look at the first book. And it is, hey, what do you know? Spider-Man number 7. And I'm doing it again, covering the grade 9.8. This is a book I just keep picking up and I keep getting slabbed because I'm able to find it at a good price, and it is currently sitting at a decent fair market value in a 9.8. Popular book, first appearance of Spider-Boy. This is my favorite version or variant of Spider-Man number 7. It's the Humberto Ramos spoiler cover. A lot of times people say, like, if it says spoiler, that's the book that you want to pre-order. That's not always the case, but in this case, pun intended, was the one to pick up with Spider-Boy right there on the cover. I think a lot of people have moved on from Spider-Boy. Now everybody is all about Ultimate Spider-Man, but it's a good example of just looking at the gap between what you paid for a book and what it's worth in a 9.8. And while it's not a good idea to slab every modern these days, I always slab that one if I feel it's a 9.8 candidate. Okay, next up is Wonder Woman 763. I had picked up a number of Joshua Middleton Wonder Woman covers, and I got them at a really nice price, on sale, steep discount. And I kind of do the same thing with all of those. Any 9.8 candidates, I grab them and set them aside for CGC. Just a gorgeous, beautiful Wonder Woman cover. And also, this is an example of where my collection spreadsheet is kind of making the decision for me, where I'm looking at not just the value of the book, and I want to make that clear too. When I'm trying to decide which books to send in, it's not always just the value in a 9.8. I take into consideration what I paid for the book. So if I'm buying Spider-Man number 7 for, let's say, $15, and it's roughly a $90 9.8, then the gap between the price that I paid, plus the cost to get the book graded, shipping, and all of that, that amount, when compared to the 9.8 value, it makes sense. There's a nice little value add margin, however you want to phrase it, depending on what you intend to do with the book. And then there's a book like this that maybe doesn't have the desirability or the value of a Spider-Man 7. I know we're talking about, $75 to $100 slabs here. We're not talking about Hulk 181s. But the point is, if I bought this book for a certain amount, but in a CGC 9.8, it might only be like $65, $70. But if I ended up buying this for $1, then my spreadsheet is saying, go ahead and get that slabbed. So that's some of the sort of automated decision making that is happening here. So sometimes you'll see books with a low FMV or maybe a lower FMV in a 9.8 than you would think, like, why are we slabbing that book? And it's typically because I was able to acquire it for a really good price. All right, another book to add to the Transformers wall. This is Transformers number 1 with cover art by Cliff Chang. And I'm trying to get a number of these in a 9.8. Transformers number 1, the new series, was a heavily ordered series. And what that means is the variants that have really awesome covers are easy to find and very affordable. And this was an example of me waiting. I didn't buy every variant or pre-order every variant, I should say, of Transformers number 1. This was the 1 in 25. I didn't buy it. I got it later, found it really cheap, submitted it as I thought it was a beautiful copy, and certainly came back as a 9.8, so I'm happy about that. And also, none of these books were pressed. When I do my 9.8 pre-screens, I'm the one giving it the unofficial pre-screen first, and I decide that these books are worth submitting without submitting them for pressing first. And that's how I like to run my pre-screen workflow. If it does come back and I do have rejects in the submission, then I examine those rejects and see, are there any pressable defects in the books, and then maybe those go into my area of my collection where I've isolated some books to go off for pressing. All right, very nice. Transformers number 1, the 1 in 25, getting the 9.8. Okay, next one. Amazing Spider-Man number 19. This is the 1 in 25 cover by Terry Dodson. Love Terry and Rachel's art here, and really difficult not to get a Dodson cover with Black Cat, Spider-Man on the cover, slab. Really gorgeous colors, inking, and a lot of these incentives I ended up picking up around November of 2023, specifically picking up some Black Friday deals from different stores. So again, while this is not maybe the most valuable retailer incentive with Black Cat on the cover, I'm thinking of a lot of maybe Adam Hughes covers that came out within the last year. Those 1 in 25s or even 1 in 50s are far more valuable. But I mean, I was picking up these for less than cover price, so not anywhere close to ratio. So very cool. Amazing Spider-Man 19, 1 in 25. Okay, next one we have Amazing Spider-Man number 32. This one, interesting story. A good friend of mine who I don't want to say exclusively buys on my comic shop, but loves to watch the My Comic Shop want lists and the recently added books. For me, that stuff, it moves way too fast. But there are times where he's looking at it and he's letting me know that MCS has some books for sale if I missed out. This is Amazing Spider-Man number 32. This is the homage cover to Web of Spider-Man, Elizabeth Tork on cover art. This also is a retailer incentive. And the beautiful thing about this was it was listed on MCS as a 9.2. And I'm not suggesting that every 9.2 is a 9.8 there, but in a lot of cases, they will severely undergrade a book. And I don't know exactly why they do that. I think they're just super strict with their grading. But sometimes you can set up your searches and your queries in a certain way to find retailer incentives that are around a 9.0, 9.2, sometimes 9.4, and they'll come back as 9.8 candidates. Again, this book was not pressed. So big shout out, Kevin757. Thank you very much for the heads up on this one. And I remember when we did, we each got one of these that we were trying to compare, like, just the condition of the book and everything. And there it is, 9.8, great pickup from My Comic Shop. Okay, here we go. We've got Daredevil 28. Awesome. I bought several copies of these. This issue is interesting because the Kingpin becomes the mayor of New York City. And this is a storyline that is rumored to be included in the Daredevil Born Again series when it hits. I can't wait for it. The Daredevil series on Netflix might be my favorite MCU streaming series. I want to rewatch it. I absolutely love it. And I'm not like, hugely speculating on this. It's just that this book has popped to be a $15 to $20 book, has some value in a 9.8. And again, the theme here is finding books on sale, heavily discounted, maybe underpriced in the case of this book, and then it becomes worth the additional investment to put into it, as I essentially found this book at cover price. Very cool, 9.8. Daredevil 28, that is from 2017. All right, next one up, X-Men Classic number 79. Now, this one, awesome. In fact, let me start over and figure out. Okay, recording in 3, 2. Okay, and the next one is X-Men Classic number 79. Now, I got this off eBay, and it was really beat up. I thought it was going to be an 8.0, but I stared at the cover a really, really long time, and I'm curious to see what grade it got, and it got a 9.8. Wow, it just completely shocked. Now, in all seriousness, the story behind this one is I did get this book off of eBay. I purchased it in like a 6-book lot. Somebody had 6 copies of X-Men Classic 79. Around this issue number, Adam Hughes did a run of covers, and it's very interesting to see Adam Hughes X-Men cover art. And with Jean Grey Phoenix being one of my favorite X-Men, Adam Hughes, very popular creator, cover artist, I was trying to put a run together of these covers and searched on eBay, and somebody had a stack and listed them as near mint. I got all 6 books back, graded each one, and felt there was only one worthy of a 9.8 candidate, and I pre-screened it myself, labeled it as such, sent it in, and finally very happy that I did to get a 9.8 on this great Adam Hughes cover for X-Men Classic 79. Very cool. Love that one. Okay, next up is Wolverine number 29. This was another cover that some people liked, some people didn't like. This is the Maria Wolf cover, and she's done some pretty amazing covers. She did a really fantastic Ghost Rider variant. This was a 1 in 25 incentive, and I think because it was not universally loved, some of the online stores in late November had this one for sale, but this has a lot going on in terms of the palette, the detail that Maria Wolf puts into her covers. And I think that, yes, Wolverine covers are always collectible, but I think that over time, as Maria Wolf does more and more covers, that it might be very interesting to collect maybe 5 or 10 of them get them graded, framed, and display them all together as kind of a theme of books. If nothing else, I want to get that Ghost Rider Maria Wolf cover graded as well. But I like this one and loved even more the fact that I was able to find it way under ratio. Okay, I've got 2 more slabs to go. Next is, all right, now I was worried. Now I will say, when I looked down to grab this slab, there was one more, and then there is a box of rejects. So let me go ahead and get that one. So there are raw books inside, specifically between the cardboard, it says. And I remembered that I had submitted this book, and this was the main book in this submission that I wanted, and really, really happy. Speaking of Jean Grey Phoenix, love this character, love Art Germ, love collecting his full art variants, and I think I have enough too to actually create a really nice display of these. But this was a 1 in 100 that, again, was not as popular as other Art Germ covers, but boy, looking at it in a 9.8, I'm really super happy to have this. And I will be honest too, I think when I originally picked this up and screened it, I had it as borderline 9698. And it's another way to utilize the pre-screen. I often talk about the pre-screen process as insurance for your submissions and not to be used as, well, I'll let CGC figure it out. The only exception is when I feel like I'm really being too harsh on a book, and I know that it's no less than a 9.6, but I'm not exactly convinced that it's a 9.8 candidate. And I think the reason I gave the 9.6 on this one, I'll see if I can get pretty close, but this corner up here just was not quite as put together completely as I would have liked. But I thought, everything else structurally about the book is fantastic, but with me paying extra attention on the corners, the top corner and even the bottom corner to some degree just did not have absolute perfection. But I think the rest of the book was in such good shape that it ended up getting the 9.8. So really pleased, as this was the centerpiece of this submission, getting a 9.8. Love that one. That's X-Men Hellfire Gala #1. It's the 1 in 100 by Art Germ from 2022. The last slab in this submission, X-Men 3. Love it. When I unboxed this, I talked about how I love this book for several reasons. Another Terry Dodson, Rachel Dodson combo on cover art featuring Rogue. And I'll say, one of my favorite X-Men characters. X-Men far and away is my favorite team, so of course a lot of those characters are going to be my favorites. And I play Marvel Snap, the mobile game. I know I shouldn't, and I'm kind of an addict when it comes to Marvel Snap. And I have this variant as my main card that I play in the game. And so I wanted to have possibly a collection of my favorite in-game cards and covers. And I don't really quite know what I'm going to do there. However, X-Men 3 from 2021, the 1 in 25, featuring Rogue and cover art by Terry Dodson and Rachel Dodson on inks. Very, very happy to get that one in a 9 point. Now it's time to see which books didn't make the cut. I believe this was a 12-book submission, so it looks like 2 didn't make it. And I'm usually really careful around the books. Well, of course, now the first one I pick up, I've got a 9.6 written on the back. I did get some advice not to put the grades on the back, or at least erase them off of the board when I submit it, because it could possibly influence the grader. So let's take a look and see. All right. I was going to say Strange, and there it is, Doctor Strange. This was a book that I picked up for a couple of bucks from Midtown recently, and I think looking at this one, the bottom corner right there in the upper right, that one was just a little bit too dented. I can certainly see that. The rest of the book looked great to me. Might have, I'm kicking myself now, and it's almost like my spreadsheet kicked it out as a pre-screen. But I may have to look at that formula again, because I don't want to necessarily send 9.6s in for a 9.8 pre-screen unless I feel like it's really in between. That one, looking at it with that corner, and also even in just recently, within the last few weeks, as I've been studying slabs and grades, the corners are the priority right now at CGC. And that was a blemished corner, a blunted corner. I should not have sent that one in. Now, this one, this was a book from my original collection that I came across. This is X-Men 509, cover art by Greg Land. Psylocke on the cover here, she's had so many different personalities and characters, and her personality and essence being transferred from one character to another. I remember grading this book and thinking there's no reason why it wouldn't get a 9.8, and I still can't really tell why. So I don't know what to make of this one. I'll have to look at it again, but I mean, they must be really nitpicky on the corners now. If you take a look at the corner up by the spine, it's just a hairline of a color break up there. And I'm not sure if that's it or not. But that's unfortunate. Was hoping to get this one back in a 9.8. But overall, out of the comics that did get slabbed, honestly, I would not swap these two in for any of these. I love the fact that these 10 got the 9.8. These two didn't. Of course, I would have loved a perfect 12 for 12. But if any two were going to be rejected, I'm happy that those were instead of any of the other books. So there you go. No 9.9s in this one. So I'm so disappointed with myself. I really don't know what to make of the 9.9 pre-screen, but I do know I'm going to continue to have some fun with it. Let me know what you think about this submission. How did I do? Feel free to leave me a comment below this video. Thanks for watching, happy collecting, and see you next time.